Hello, hello, ladies. Thank you for your patience. Having technical issues, but we're going to, everything's going to be all right. My name is Belinda, and hello, hello, ladies. Oh, hold on. Here in the back. Thank you. Turn that down. All right. For your patience. All right. My name is Belinda, and I am the coordinator for the upcoming Women of Grace Gathering. If you've been joining us, we've been having our Girl Talk every Thursday since November. And this month we're in for a treat because we have one of our very own that will be sharing her story and also talking about her upcoming book. But before we get into that, I always like to remind you all, if you haven't already, please make sure that you register for our upcoming gathering. You can find all of the information on our website. You can go to wograce.com. Our event will be, it's in a little over a month, March the 15th and the 16th, and it will be at the Hilton Atlanta Marietta Hotel and Conference Center. Our theme for this year is Relentless Faith, God's Got You. We have some dynamic speakers. We have Dr. Dietrich Hill, she'll be speaking on Friday night. Saturday morning, we'll have Apostle Karen Dones, and on Saturday evening, we'll end the night with a praise party with our speaker, Dr. Matisa Wilbin. If you haven't, like I said, already registered, please make sure that you go to our website to learn all of the details. On that Saturday, we're going to have a high tea, so make sure you have your hat or your fascinator. One of our vendors will be selling hats, so if you forget yours, you can purchase one. But we want to make sure that you have your seat. If you haven't already reserved your hotel, please make sure you go and do that. And you can find the information for the hotel as well as the registration information on our website. So make sure you go to wograce.com and you will see all of the details there. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I have the awesome pleasure of talking to Dr. Betty Williams, and she's going to share a little bit about her journey. And we'll also be talking about this awesome devotional that she has. It's called Journey into Wholeness. You can order it on Amazon and through the other places. I purchased mine from Amazon. But Dr. Williams, tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Thanks, Melinda, for having me, first of all. I'm so excited to be here and looking forward to the upcoming 2024 Women of Grace Conference. And I've been with Women of Grace for about 10 years now. The two things I like to tell people about myself is that I am a counselor and a spiritual director or minister. Those are the two things that I like to talk about. The two things that keep me humble, though, is the fact that I'm a mother of a 27-year-old, because he always thinks he knows more than I do and tries to educate.
We do keep y'all humble. We apologize, but we're sorry.
Yes. And I've been married to my supportive, awesome husband for about 33 years now. I lose count, but it's 30 something. I do know that.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, and we talked about this before we started, but tell us a little bit about your book and overview and like the process it took to write the book.
Yeah, I think I was saying to you, it's the journey itself is almost a two-part process. One is the journey that God took me on while writing the book, and then there's the process of actually publishing the book. I will say that I knew that I had to write the book because it just felt like this mandate from God. It just felt like this angst in my spirit until I got it out. And it took me a process of years. I think I even told you, just because for me, writing is a discipline. I'm not a can crank it out in an hour kind of writer. It takes, days for me to get a chapter done. So it really is a discipline for me. But I kept having people, ministers, who would just prophesy and speak into my life and tell me that you are a writer. And so it took a great deal of faith for me to grab a hold of that word and to make it happen. Um, and to, as I said, be intentional about the discipline of sitting down and doing it. The probably the most interesting thing to me when I was thinking about this is that word was confirmed for me at a Women of Grace conference several years before I actually wrote the book. I was at a crossroads in my life, and it was doing a praise and worship service at a weekend conference. And I remember sort of asking God, just what is it that I'm supposed to be doing right now? And I've always said to Brenda that the Women of Grace conferences are so anointed. They are so powerful because I know that the women who are connected to the organization are prayer warriors. I mean, I know that they are praying for the women before they get there. And I felt those prayers. The anointing was so powerful. And as I was asking God this question, I literally had a vision of the book being printed. And I saw the title, Journey into Wholeness. And there are many stages along the way where experts were telling me you need to change the title of this book to make it more popular, to make it grabbable off the shelf, et cetera, et cetera. But I knew it was the title that God had given me because I'd seen it in the vision.
Mhm.
And if this is an appropriate time, I'll tell you about how the title came to be. Is
Go
this
ahead.
okay?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So again, as a part of my journey, I grabbed a hold of the word wholeness um, as a part of my work because the word in the Greek is sozo.
Mhm.
And I think I got the word from my pastor one Sunday when he was preaching, but I began to study the word. Wholeness and or sozo in the Greek actually also means salvation or healing, or also can be translated as peace. And so in my work as a counselor, a great deal of the time, I was working with people and trying to help them find peace in their lives. And one of the ways that I've been trained is that in order for that to happen, it's more than just about a mental, emotional process. It's about a physical and spiritual process as well. And so this integration of all of it, the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual became very important to me over the process of my working years. I mean, I've been at this for about 33 years of helping people in some way or another, in some role or another. And so it was very important for me. I felt like my message was to help people understand that spirituality is very, very practical. And there are
Mhm.
ways that God shows up in our lives in big and small ways in everything that we do. And throughout the chapters of the book, I just wanted to present these very practical, everyday experiences in which God showed up in a big way. Because I felt like if I can show the ways that God shows up in my life, then maybe, just maybe, people will be intentional about allowing God and seeking God to show up in their lives in big ways.
Wow. See, it's a lot of things that you were saying that resonated. It was almost as if you've been on this journey of helping people and is allowing you to use all of the resources that you've used throughout that journey to help them reach wholeness. But then
Absolutely.
also it takes the work of them not because many times you try to compartmentalize, like if I work on my physical health, then that's good. But a part of working on your physical health is being mindful of your spiritual health because that helps you to be more fine-tuned with hearing from God and like all of those things. And in the end, you just are giving us resources. And many times people write books and they write it on like you have to be a doctoral student in order to understand. But you kept it like real, like anybody can pick it up and it's easily translatable. So I can say, okay, Pride and Prejudice, I can get through here and give me some tools to help with dealing with pride or dealing with other issues. So I definitely thank you for taking the time to listen and to, even though you said it was a journey for you as it is a journey for us of being able to work towards that wholeness in Christ. So what experiences or insights kind of helped you Like you got I want to do this book, but like what kept you working towards, I have to finish this book? Because you said you're not one that can just crank it out in a day or two. But like what kept you
Absolutely.
I gotta finish this journey to wholeness?
Yeah, it really was those God connections that I was talking about in my own life that kept me on the road to doing it. As I said, there were people who were speaking into my life who said, "This is what you need to do." And actually, in the process, I started one of the ways I prepare myself. I teach intentionality. That's what I teach, no matter what role I'm in. I'm always teaching people there are certain things that you have to do in order to be in the place for God to do what God needs to do in your life. And so I felt like in order to be a writer, I needed to prepare myself and educate myself on writing. And
Mm.
so I started attending conferences and I became a part of at least two writing groups where I could get feedback from my peers. And it was really affirming because I actually figured out just from the feedback from my peers that, oh, I can write. Okay, that's a good thing. If you're going to be a writer, it makes sense if you can really write. And my first degree, believe it or not, was English. But I had to get a lot of the English training out of my head, the English teacher training out of my head in order to write a devotional because one of the things that most writers who make a living at writers will tell you is you just have to get the story on the page in
Mhm.
order for the book to get done. And as an English major, sometimes you're too involved in the sentence structure and trying to make sure you're spelling everything correctly. Well, that's a part of it, but that's the end process. The beginning
Mhm.
process is being able to get the story on the page. And literally there were times when I would say, okay, God, what am I writing today? And it would
Mhm.
be that kind of session where God would say, let's tell this story about when you did this. And that would be the story of the day. And when I need to pause, you tell me, but I want to
No, you
also
got.
tell you about the fact that going back to the wholeness idea, um, one of the things that I figured out in the process was the sozo was about the God connections, even in the New Testament. Sozo is used over 100 times in the New Testament. But typically, it was when Jesus was touching someone and healing them, not only physically, I mean, there was that moment of healing, but there was also this process when the person was saved in terms of their own emotional process, their own mental process, or whatever. And again, the parallel process for me was that while I was writing the book, God was healing me even from the stories that I was telling, that I hoped would be healing for the people who were reading and who would be doing the exercises.
So you have a lot of nuggets in what you're saying. I want to start first with you were talking about God gave you the vision and told you to do the work of writing this book. And you, like many of us, kind of second guess yourself, like, I'm not really sure. And some people will just leave it and never do anything. But you were like, no, he's told me to do it, but I know I need some resources to help. So you did the work of finding the people that could pour into you to let you know and give you the confirmation and give you the resources to help. And so you continued to do the work. And even through your doing the work, it was allowing you to get past all of the stuff in your head because many times we get caught in the details of things
Absolutely.
that we don't even accomplish. But like I have the idea of the new business or I have the idea of, doing whatever or applying for the job, but we let the minutia just get to us and we just never do anything. And so
Absolutely.
I had to get past like, okay, I'm gonna find some people to help me. And then like I know it's supposed to be perfect. I've written things before and it had to be a certain way, but it's like, nope, let me get it out there. And then we can critique and make edits and all of those things. And I think that's a tool that helps you to be whole because
Absolutely.
you think you're whole because you are yourself, but there are pieces and parts of you that need refining and need, fine tuning. But it takes seeking the help of others
Hmm.
and of just maybe just having or just saying it or doing something and then picking the pieces up and putting it together along with God doing the work of helping. But you have to take the first step.
Absolutely.
That was good.
You made it sound even better, actually, but yeah.
No, I'm like, I need a piece of paper so I can remember all of these things. So for those who, and I'll make sure to put a link for the book in our chat, but who is the intended audience for this book?
Really anybody, and every author says that, I know, but really the intent is for anybody who wants to grow, who really is interested in transformation. And I personally just feel like, as far as Christianity is concerned, that is the end goal,
Mhm.
is to be able to allow God to transform our lives. It is what I call the great exchange. It's my life for his life. Um, and for him to work through me. That's how the world has changed. So anyone who's looking for real change, this is not the kind of book, and I've had people say this to me, this is not the kind of book that you just kind of flip through and go through for your 15-minute morning devotional. This is
Yes.
not that kind of book. This is the kind of book that you sit with. I mean, the exercises are intentional for you to have some space, a quiet space for you to actually do some internal work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, if you're just looking again for a 15-minute devotional, this is not for you. But if you are interested in real transformation and real connection with God, then this is the book.
Yes. There's some sections here. I'm like, I read it. I'm not ready for that piece yet, but I know that because it's some stuff I got to think through and, work through. But it is definitely a great tool and resource to help you get to that journey of wholeness. Like, do you think, is there ever a point where we feel that we're whole or that we are whole?
No, I mean, I really think that the journey is the journey and the end of the journey is death. But even then, we hope that there's something after that as well. So I think the wholeness is about the journey, and the journey is wholeness, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. It's not about reaching perfection. It really is about tapping into the integration process with God leading you. Again, it's the great exchange. It's me letting go and allowing God to have control to do what God wants to do. And I'm glad you said that bit about, I need to put this aside because I'm not ready to do it. I've had that feedback from people. Like I had one lady who said, I did the same exercise 3 times. She's like, I'm still not sure I got it, And I said, it's okay. It's really okay. This is about your journey as well. Once you get the book, it's then about your journey.
I think this book is one where, there's some books you can just read one time and put it on your shelf and never touch it again. And you
Mm-hmm.
certain parts of it, but I almost feel like this is a book that you can revisit maybe during certain seasons of life as you're transitioning from one to the other, or maybe it's a book that you read once or twice a year because, as you journey through time, your perspective may change and what you saw then or the notes that you felt or the reflections or the process that you thought you were going through, maybe there's been a shift of some sort. So I think it's an ongoing book of like I probably have some stuff I'd rather write in pencil. So
Mm-hmm.
if I make a mistake or something isn't quite right, but I feel like I could write it in pencil, but I'm probably gonna scratch through and or add some extra pages to it. But it's definitely something that you can revisit time and time again. So
Absolutely.
in your perspective, what are some spiritual obstacles we as women may encounter? And like, how can we overcome them or learn to manage them as we continue on this journey of being on our journey to wholeness?
Mentioned it earlier. I think we get caught up in the minutia of every day. And it's not just that there are spiritual obstacles, but again, we're talking about just obstacles, whether they're mental, emotional, or physical obstacles. But I think especially as women, we tend to get caught up in the relationship stuff, the
Mm,
relationship issues of the moment or of the day, whether it's our relationship with our children, or relationship with our husbands, or a relationship with our coworkers. We tend to be more relationship oriented. And so we tend to get caught up in the emotions of whatever is happening in that. For men, it's more of career and purpose obstacles. Men tend to get more caught up in, am I accomplishing enough? Am I making enough? Do I have the right title? Am I driving the right car? Et cetera, et cetera. Not that women aren't concerned about those things as well, but in my 30-something year experience, those are the gender differences that tend to come up. But we all get caught up in the minutia instead of being able to let the minutia go. And I think the way that we get untangled from the minutia is being intentional about having spiritual disciplines in our lives every single day. And when I talk about spiritual disciplines, I'm not just talking about the reading of the Bible and the prayers that we should be praying, but I'm talking about all of those things and any of those things that allow you to free yourself of you and be able to connect with God. And for me, that's about walking as often as I possibly can. That's about being out in nature as I possibly can. So it's important for you, for all of us, to be intentional about figuring out what are those things that really help me in freeing myself of the minutia of everyday life, because that is what adds stress to our lives, is getting bogged down in that minutia. And stress can kill you. Stress
mhm,
can cause anxiety, it can cause depression, it can cause diabetes, it can cause a heart attack. Um, but that's how the negative process begins to happen. So in order to counter that, and in my opinion, the spiritual warfare is to be able to have those disciplines that are already a part of your life that you're being intentional about. Because what I have found is that when life gets more stressful, people tend to actually let go of the good stuff that they're already doing instead of increasing the good stuff that they're doing.
mm,
And so it oftentimes takes somebody like me, like a counselor, to say, hey, wait, we need to get back to what you know to do that are good things. I mean,
mhm,
Paul even says sometimes I don't do what I know to do.
mhm.
And part of that's because we get really caught up in the small stuff.
So, is there a reason why we drop the things that kind of bring us joy or that make
I
us
think it's
happy?
just human nature. I think it's human nature because one of the things that we know from research is that the mind tends to go towards the negative, and it tends to have the most emotional impact on us. And so those negative things just trigger our emotions faster and stay longer. And so therefore you have to have the positive things already in place. They almost always have to already be a habit for you in order for you to continue those things and to increase those things when the stress gets more stressful. It's just like exercise. If you don't have a regular exercise routine, you're probably not going to start one in the middle of something really, really stressed.
That's true.
And it's going to help you, though, if you already have that exercise routine in place. When you go on a trip or whatever, when you're really going to eat terrible food, probably. The same concept. If you have spiritual disciplines in place already in your life, it's much easier to help you get through the most stressful things in your life. Because again, the most natural process, or the humanistic part of us, immediately goes to the negative.
That is very true. So you were talking about women being more relationally driven. So with that, how does the concept, and you talk a little bit about community, of having that support and that sisterhood, how does that play in us being able to overcome struggles, whether they're spiritually, physically, whatever type of struggles?
Yeah. I think God created us for connection. I think as human beings, not only connection with Him, but connection with each other. As a matter of fact, Jesus says in Matthew I think it's 22 where it says, the greatest commandment is loving God with everything you've got, Betty version, and then loving your neighbor. Um, and women tend to um, again, be driven more towards connection and relationship. What we know from research is that people recover faster if they have touch, like
Mm-hmm.
physical touch. They recover from sickness. They recover from mental, emotional illness quicker if they have emotional touch and if they have communication. We also know that couples, I mean, the one thing that we say to couples over and over again is communicate, communicate, communicate. It's about how you communicate. Um, I mean, same is true in all relationships. I mean, we need each other, and we have to work at um, how we connect to each other. And that tends to be the hardest part, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think we crave community, and I think, we look for community, but it's hard for us sometimes, especially if we have trauma in our lives, it's hard for us to trust. And
Mm-hmm.
so learning how to trust and show love to each other is probably the hardest part. And that's the spiritual piece. I mean, that's where I think it takes God helping us learn how to love each other. Um, that's absolutely necessary.
I think that is definitely true. One of the classes that I used to teach was about trust and like trust being kind of the foundation of it all. But you have
Mhm.
those who either come in, I'm going to trust them until they do something wrong, or you have those who come in where you have to earn my trust. Like I
Mhm.
automatically think that you are out to get me.
Mhm.
Having those different types of people and how you have to navigate the waters of I have this person who don't trust me, but I haven't done anything to them. So how do I build that trust with them? Um,
Absolutely.
so what tips would you have when it comes to being a good sister and being trustworthy or just being overall a good person?
I think being present with one another, again, as you said, I think sometimes we come into relationships with expectations, and sometimes when those expectations are not filled, we tend to back up and back out. But if we can stay present and stay present with God, that is the only way that we learn how to love. I'm not talking about abuse because I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that as well. People stay in abusive relationships way too long. But what I'm talking about is just the ability to be present and listen when we need to listen, and to be able to be open when we need to be open. And that's a God skill. I mean, it really is. It only comes through that relationship with God that we learn how to be present with others. I've been in some of the hardest places to be present with others. I've worked as a chaplain in hospice situations. I've worked as a chaplain in prison systems. And some of the personalities that I run into, especially in the prison system, were some of the hardest personalities. And working in a hospice, as you would imagine, watching somebody die is some of the hardest places to be present and sit with people dying. But I think those circumstances and learning how to allow God in, even when I was scared or anxious, to allow God to be present while I was present with another person is what I try to teach others about. And I think that's how God shows us how to love each other.
By you being the resource and being open to him showing you allows you to show other people how to trust and learn and develop their own relationships. That is awesome. All
Yes,
right.
and other people do the same. I mean, other people, when you're sitting with other people and you don't know what to say, or if you don't know if I should shut up at this very moment, that's the time when you have to be open to God and say, okay, God. I mean, that's the carrying God with you all day,
Mhm.
every day. That is the being present with God all day, every day.
And that's having the open line because you have a relationship with God. You came into the situation like, Lord, I'm going to be here. I'm not sure why or, the reasoning behind, but guide me throughout this entire process.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
many
I
times we
mean,
think we may just try to talk over them and do our own thing, and that's what we want to do.
Absolutely. I mean, and I tell people all the time, and I sort of kiddingly say it about, being a mother and being a wife being the most humbling thing, the two most humbling things that I do on a daily basis, but it really is because it's in those relationships because they're the closest to me and they know me best. They know all of my faults, every one of them. I mean, and they probably make up a few, but it's only when those relationships are hardest that I can release them and say, okay, God, I'm emotionally bereft right now and need you in this moment that God can come in and help me in getting through whatever argument or circumstance that we need to get through.
You bring up a good point. I don't have the 30 plus years of marital experience. I've only been married a little over a year. And I can honestly say that I've never prayed as much and, sought God's face until I got married because I didn't want it to be me saying the words or, causing division or anything like that. So it's like, Lord, I need you to help. When I'm one where if there's a way that I can fix it, but it's him teaching me that it's not me that can do the work, it's him that has to do the work.
Absolutely.
So it it definitely does humble you in the best possible way. I
Yes,
always recommend to those who are seeking marriage and all of that, just make sure it's the right person because you don't want to be going through this for the wrong reasons. So
absolutely.
it is a lot of work. Let's talk a little bit about, we talked about your book and you have the decades of experience of being a counselor. I think still the very first virtual um, fellowship that we had with Women of Grace was with you when we talked about COVID and mental health issues that many people are facing. And I think we as African Americans, we still have those stigmas. I think like people my age and younger are more apt to, yeah, we have a therapist and kind of talking through our issues. There are older people who also do the same, but mental health in general kind of has some stigmas. So how do you think your book and the work you do in general helps to break down those stigmas that people may have?
I think everything we've talked about, really, because, we all have issues, right? We all know we have issues. But it's not until we're willing to be humble enough to say that I need other people.
Mm,
And the other people could be my sister, whom I call, and say, hey, I'm having a hard day. It might be my pastor. It might, who I call and say, I'm really struggling with this particular temptation or whatever. Or it could be a counselor who has a breadth of experience and may not know me at all and can give me an objective perspective. I think more and more people are open to that than
mhm.
they ever have been. But I think, it just takes us continuing to talk about it. Um, and I make no bones about it in the book. Again, I talk about my own experience as a counselor, and I talk about the idea that we need community. Um, and we need community on all levels. Again, it's not just about our peers or our families, but it's about the social networks that are out there and available for us as resources. I love telling people about EAP, an employee assistance program. Most people, if you work in a company of any size, you have an HR department. That
Mhm.
HR department can refer you to EAP. It's free counseling, free. Did I say free? I said
Yes.
free. And so I'm often telling people about EAP because it doesn't matter if you're just going through a stressful time or if something really tragic just happened in your life. These are professional people when you pick up the phone and you just call a number and you're talking to somebody and or you can set up a face-to-face. But it's just going to take us continuing to get the message out and to have platforms like this where we're making it okay to be
Mhm.
vulnerable and open.
Awesome. Yes. EAP. It's how I use my resources. So definitely if you are going through something, even if you're not, I think when I started counseling, it was in 2019. It wasn't like I was stressed out or mentally over it or whatever. It's just like I have felt the tug to
Mhm.
reach out to someone, to kind of get
Mhm.
the tools, because I'm not one for words, and she and I are still working through me not liking having difficult conversations. But I can see the changes that I've made by having that neutral third party,
Mhm.
to kind of work through issues from childhood, work, whatever. So if you uh, feeling the tug, if you're stressed out, all the things, see if your employer offers those resources. And if you try someone and it doesn't necessarily work, try somebody else. It's still free. So
Absolutely.
there are resources out there. One of the resources that we offer here at Women of Grace is for those who come to our Grace Gathering. You all get the opportunity to have a complimentary consultation with the Dr. Betty Williams. So can you kind of tell us about the sessions? Of course, not going into detail of what is discussed, but what can someone expect if they signed up for a consultation?
Well, let me tell you even how that came to be. I think I started talking to you earlier about the fact that I'm hired often as a crisis counselor, where I go into agencies and when something has happened, and usually I do some psychoeducation, and then I'm available to sit with people one-on-one. And usually those sessions are about 30 to 40 minutes. And it's amazing what can get done in 30 and 40 minutes. And that's what people kind of say to me, like, what can I get? What you gonna do
Mhm.
in 30 or 40 minutes, right? Um, but with these consultations, Brenda and I talked about my doing the same kind of thing at the Women of Grace conferences. And my idea was, women come to the conferences and they have these huge impacts, whether it's, from the workshops or during prayer time or whatever. But we want to make sure that women who are really hurting or really struggling with something have an opportunity for somebody to hear them
Mhm.
individually, to really hear them. And that's what these 30 or 40-minute sessions are about. It's a place to be heard, number one. Number two, it's a place to go home that you can make a concrete plan that you can go home with. It's not just an experience, but it's something practical, where you can make a plan and know that this is the next step for me in my life, for whatever I'm struggling with or whatever the problem is. I've talked with this professional who's kind of looked at this issue with me and said, hey, here are some resources that you can tap into. Here's a plan of how you can make some things happen. And so we wanted, again, to create a space where women could talk individually about their specific struggle
Mhm.
and actually walk away with something really practical.
Yeah, because you get the spiritual aspect, but that's one
Mhm.
of the things that I always want us, as we're planning the conference. You can get on such a spiritual high, but what are you going to do on Monday morning when you
Absolutely.
go back to work or you have to deal with that difficult friend or whatever? What are the tools that you can use and apply, once you're back home?
Absolutely. And I will say, let me add that we do pray in those sessions. I mean, and God does show up. And so there is the spiritual component that's there as well. And again, it's in the midst of the supercharged, anointed conference, that all of this is happening. So I always feel like, even as a counselor and a spiritual director, I feel like I'm doing more in 30 or 40 minutes sometimes than I'm doing in an hour-long session.
Mhm.
Um, so I highly recommend it.
Yes. So can you kind of tell, have you received any feedback from past participants, or do you have people who are repeat? Like I know I'm gonna see, you don't have to say names, of course. I know I'm gonna see Susie. She's been coming to me faithfully.
Yeah,
Have you
that's the
received
coolest thing about being a part of Women of Grace is that I do get to see the women sort of on an annual basis. I mean, and interestingly enough, I mean, I live in Macon and some of the Women of Grace women are from Macon, but I never see anybody until I get to the Women of Grace conference. So it's still like, I'm still the counselor. I sort of still wear that title and still have some objectivity because I don't know them on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, I do. I do see people annually sometimes that I haven't seen in a while. And yes, I do hear back from people. I mean, I don't necessarily get a phone call, but
Mhm.
usually I hear from people that next year about what they've done or how it's helped, which of course is very affirming.
Awesome. So for those who are on the fence about attending the gathering, please make sure you register. We have and will send out information to sign up for one of the sessions with Dr. Williams. She offers it on both days, so March the 15th and the 16th. So you can come. I know some think I have notes. These are things I want to talk to Dr. Williams about.
Yeah.
And like she said, she does that circle back. So as you continue to come, she'll do the check-in with you. So we definitely want you all to have the resources because we know that the event is not just something that we want to get you emotionally charged. We want the Lord to be with us and be present, but we also want to make sure that we're helping you through your journey into wholeness. So that's all aspects of your life. As you mentioned before, somebody said they had a chance to speak with you at Kroger.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned before, you were saying that Women of Grace, we are a ministry of prayer. And we use the acronym PFS, so Prayer, Fellowship, and Service. And we try to incorporate that through all of the activities that we do. So with my last question, and this is one of the questions that I ask all of our guests, is how can we pray for Dr. Williams?
Thank you so much for asking that question. Probably the thing that I would ask first is just pray for those sessions. I mean, because they are precious to me, and totally enjoy doing them. But I never know, what's going to show up, what's going to walk into the room, and so I want to be able to give the attendees my best and be able to make the right decisions in the moment with them and give them the best information. So that, first of all. Secondly, I need to get the second book done. So as much as y'all want to pray about that, I'll take it.
We could do that. Awesome. Actually, that was my second to last question. So I found your book on Amazon. Are there other places that people can find your book and so they can order it?
No, Amazon is the outlet.
Okay.
I will have some at the conference.
Okay.
And if you want me to send you a copy, then you can always email me at Caring Counseling inv@gmail.com. But Amazon is just the easiest. So that's the easiest way to get it. But I
Gotcha.
will have some at the conference.
Gotcha. And I'm gonna bring mine so you can autograph it. But
Oh,
we
thank you.
we will definitely be praying for you for the second book, as well as for those who are coming to the gathering. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us about your journey into wholeness and your book and the process that it took to take it from my head to the paper, and sharing about the consultation sessions and just your role in different facets of the community. I thank you for the work that you're doing to help us get our mental health together. And I am excited to have you at the conference. And for the women that are going to come in for the sessions, I know that they will be blessed because not only are you praying for them, but you're going to, with God's leading, give them the help that they need to continue on their journey to wholeness. I'm gonna make sure I order some books from Amazon, so we'll have some. So these probably will be some of the giveaways we give out because Women of Grace loves to give out prizes. So I have
Oh, thank you.
in my Amazon cart to purchase some books so we can help other women in their journey to wholeness. But I thank you once again, and I'll see you in less than a month. Ladies, if you haven't already, make sure you go to our website, wograce.com, to register. Thank you for your flexibility in going to YouTube. I'm not sure why Facebook didn't work, but I thank you for tuning in to this awesome conversation. Next week, I'll actually be interviewing another speaker. We'll be interviewing Apostle Karen Downs, and we're going to be talking about prayer. So make sure you tune in, and I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday. My mom told me to tell you, love you so much, Dr. Williams. you're a godsend for the ministry. So I
Oh,
wanted to
thank you.
share that with you. But thank you all, ladies, and I hope you all have a great rest